priority to us is our desire to see innovation as the bedrock for this sector. And to this extent, the Commission itself has been restructured in such a manner that we can be a lot more innovative. A Directorate of Innovation and Regulation has been created to be able to supervise this. We now have an innovation hub where ideas from the market are then taken, incubated, and worked in the market. We believe these are clearly areas that will propel the so much desired growth that we require in the insurance sector. And finally is the area of penetration, access to insurance. Mr. Chairman, you recall that one key element we've witnessed is the fact that even some of the existing compulsory insurances in the nation's laws are never fully enforced. Recently, we've engaged and we've embarked on a mass collaboration effort with all the various enforcement agencies that have the power or the teeth to bite to assist us in making this a priority. And the first of those policies we picked is the compulsory motor insurance, the compulsory third-party motor insurance. Mr. Chairman, compulsory third-party motor insurance is the minimum requirement of the law. You recall that the Motor Insurance Third-Party Act of 1945, Section 3, Subsection 1, made this mandatory. And this was reenacted even in the Insurance Act 2003, Section 68, Subsection 1. It did not give any exemption to any individual. It says no person shall use, cause to use, or authorize the use of a motor vehicle on Nigerian road without a policy of insurance. It's a universal concept that must be adopted by all. We realize that their compliance level in this regard has been too low, hence the new initiative. I've received complaints from members of the Nigerian public, and I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, yourselves and your members have received the same. But let me use this opportunity that I have to state that this is a requirement that is, that will make progress, that will allow us as a nation to take that step that's required for us to make progress when it comes to insurance penetration. We're using the opportunity to do as much as possible a lot of awareness, enlightenment campaign, and as a matter of fact, be able to educate Nigerians. I won't go into much details on this, but if there are specific questions, I'll take. Mr. Chairman, please permit me to just speak to the key highlights of the report. I'll take the report as read and just speak to the major highlights. I'll refer members to page 13 of the report. That's where we have key elements around revenue and expenditure. What is proposed, Mr. Chairman, as our total IGR for 2025 is 29.921 billion. And this is broken down into two major sources of revenue. The first being the insurance levy. Insurance levy is projected to be 17.6 billion, whilst fees and penalties is projected to be 12.3 billion, giving a total of 29.9 billion. But out of this, Mr. Chairman, 50% will be going to the Consolidated Revenue Fund by way of auto deduction. The balance is a 14.96 billion, which will be the available total IGR for the Commission to operate. I will not make too much comment in this regard, but I will jump to the expenditure side. On the expenditure side, Mr. Chairman, we have a gross total expenditure of 14.906 billion, which again is broken down into recurrent expenditure of 13.03 billion and a capital expenditure of 1.873 billion. In this regard, I think there have been some ambition on the part of the Commission, because we intend to be able to, within this very modest budget be able to carry out effectively the business of regulating the sector and be able to make the desired difference. We desire to be that sector that will continue to give the needed so-called, the needed backing to the Nigerian economy. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President has declared that Nigeria is looking forward to or aspires to be a $1 trillion economy by 2030. The insurance sector cannot be left behind. So these reforms and transformation roadmaps are what will deliver the needed elixir to be able to de-risk a $1 trillion economy. Very positive. It shows the interest you have in the National Insurance Commission. And I'll address the issues one after the other. The first one spoke to the issue of our projections for last year, which was 2024. And indeed, you alluded to the fact, or you pointed out the fact that we budgeted for 24 billion, and that the performance was significantly lower than what was projected. There are a few reasons for that. Some of those reasons are things I would like to speak to. First of it was the fact that when the budget projection or the estimate for 2024 was put together, there was indeed a desire of the commission then, or the leadership of the commission, to move the insurance levy from 1% to 1.5%. It was on the basis of that that projection was made. However, in the course of implementing that decision in the course of the year, I think they realized that indeed it will be a Herculean task because of the what's the right word? The reaction from the market, because 1% was enshrined in the law, in the NICOM Act, and that piece of legislation had not been reviewed or amended. So it was going to be a very difficult task. So it became difficult for them to then be able to move on. So in a nutshell, I love the word the honorable member made when he was describing the budget. He said something close to reality, and that essentially is what we've done. The figures we've given you is based on very close to reality. The basis of computing our 1% levy is 1% of the previous year. So the 1% we had in 2024 was based on the performance of 2023. The figures for 2025 is now based on the aggregate performance of the market in 2024, which is significantly higher than 2023. I can assure this Honorable House committee that the projections we have around the revenue is very close to reality. On the fees and penalty, there's one important area I need to clarify. The way the bill before the House of Representatives is currently passed by the Senate, you realize that there's a recapitalization factor in the provisions. The minimum share capital requirement of insurance institutions are going to be moved from 2 billion and 3 billion to 10 billion and 15 billion respectively. This has some revenue effect when it comes to the regulator, because there's an aspect of this that also has to be paid to the regulator. We are trusting that once this bill is passed and we have the assent, we can commence implementation. And this will actually reflect what we have projected. It's on this basis that those projections were made. I also need to apologize if I didn't spend time in terms of highlighting the 2024 performance. I actually said I was picking the key highlights, and indeed the fact that I was taking the document as read. But I must state that as it relates to budget, the figures we have here is the figure that has been presented by Mr. President. as also codified in what was read to the National Assembly. So I would like to plead and crave your indulgence that if specific requirements or request is needed in terms of detailed numbers, permit us to get back to the committee.
One of the regulatory agencies is not a revenue generation agency, but because of the Fiscal Responsibility Act that cajole almost everybody, regardless of whether you are a revenue generation agency or you are a regulatory agency, you have been described as one. In other words, one cap fits all. That 50% must be deducted from source that can be transmitted directly to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government. So we have not made it official, but we are working assiduously to make government understand there is a clear difference between a revenue generation agency or government-owned enterprise and that of regulatory agency. This commission is charged with the responsibility of regulating the insurance industry in the country. And we are all aware, insurance contribution to our GDP, there is nothing to write home about. We are all aware. So there is a need for the regulator to be strengthened so that people can have confidence in the industry. Another thing, the management took over almost at the middle of last year. So if you observe, we have not been engaging them throughout, not because of anything, because there is a change of pattern. And we are all aware, whenever there is a change, there is a need for the new people to understand the ropes before you start to invite them on certain issues. So meanwhile, we are expecting to have a written document containing not only the performance of the 2024, because you still have people that have the institution memory of the agency that can provide that, and at the same time members can lay their hands on them before we finally pass the budget of the commission. And members, as rightly said by the commissioner, bill was read actually the third time in the Senate, and as you are aware, you know the procedure. Senate has to transmit to the House of Representatives, not as House Committee on Insurance bill, but as a bill transmitted to the House of Representatives, which by our standing orders is going to be communicated or transmitted immediately after it's read the second time to the Committee of the Whole for consideration, where members of insurance and actuarial matters will have their input to put, which I am going to brief you in an executive session at the end of this sitting. I want to commend the leadership of NICOM for such a very wonderful presentation. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, we should have confidence in them and see at the end of 2025, maybe the beginning of 2026, when they are coming back to see whether they have made a difference or not. I crave your indulgence to excuse NICOM to take their bow and leave.
Thank you. Thank you.